All right, now I'm going to read my little intro here, which is courtesy of Judy Schwartz. Um, Here we go. Yeah. She interviewed Nick and Spencer this month for the Soil Centric blog, so look for that. It's going to come out next week. But Solar Punk Farms, 10 acres of meadow, redwood trees, market crops in Guerneville, California, was originally a 10-year plan. An improbable dream for a queer couple with demanding city jobs and zero farming experience, yet who harbored an inkling that personal fulfillment would unlikely be found sitting at a desk. Then, in three quick strokes, fate intervened. First, Spencer, who has a PhD in bioengineering, quit his well-paying job. Next, COVID happened. Then they encountered a property that checked all their boxes. It was within walking distance to a small downtown, 20 minutes to the ocean, and an easy drive from San Francisco. Miraculously, it was within their price range. Spencer, I'm not going to quote you right this second because you're on the call. So we'll get to that in a second. But Solar Punk is a riot of color and camp on field days, all at once silly and serious. It's both a working farm and a vehicle for social and environmental change. Let's welcome Spencer R. Scott and his husband Nick Schwanz as they share the ups and downs, excuse me, as they share the ups and downs of their regenerative journey.
Thanks, Kyle. It's so exciting to be here with y'all.
Thanks, y'all.
So today, like, if we want, at any point, feel free to steer us in a different direction. I know we have Q&A at the end. But if we want to talk more about specifically the ups and downs, we can get into that. So far, we've created this kind of like pitch deck, and we're going to walk you through parts of it just to give you a sense of, we're not trying to pitch you on anything, but it gives a good background on who we are and what we've done so far. So I can share my screen and we can just use that as a template.
Cool. Do I need to give you screen sharing permission?
See, I'll try.
Oh, you got it. Great.
I got it. Okay. Is there anything you want to say before we?
No, I think we've spent a lot of time kind of thinking about the story in the context of this deck. So let's just walk through that.
Great. So it's just a little quote to guide our journey. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. So we kind of use this quote to demonstrate what solar punk means to us and trying to create that vision of a future that seems very compelling, and spread that vision, and then hopefully a bunch of people yearn for it and create it. So you want to walk us through this?
Yeah, this is our long-winded way of talking about this, but the reason that we have that first quote is that what we really consider ourselves is a demonstration site, and that really talks about the power of demonstration and leading with carrots instead of sticks. So we call ourselves a queer-run regenerative lifestyle demonstration site. Through science, art, collaboration, and revelry, we aim to make the sustainable revolution seem irresistible. That's sort of what the core idea at the center of the farm is. And we do this through a bunch of different things, but ultimately we don't want to just tell you what it looks like or tell you how to get there. We want people to sensorially feel what it tastes like, smells like, and what it feels like to just like be experiencing something, be experiencing a potential future, as opposed to educating or scaring people that way. So the next slide actually, I think, has the best kind of outline of some of the core principles that we've designed our brand, for lack of a better word, around. The first one really is solar punk, which is a movement that recognizes, in a world saturated with dystopian media, the essential need for positive, attractive futures. Solarpunk seeks to wed us to a breathtaking vision of civilization where technology creates thriving ecologies and shared abundance, so that we can go out and make it a reality. That's a beautiful lens on it. The other thing we talk about a lot is that solarpunk as a narrative is purposely counter to cyberpunk or steampunk, which are two storytelling genres that constantly pit nature and technology against each other. They basically say, if these two things are opposing forces, what would the world look like? And then you end up with Mad Max. or Blade Runner, right? But this basically says, let's take that same exploratory storytelling genre approach and make those two things collaborative forces and instead, then what kind of a movie do you come up with? And that's really what the storytelling vehicle of solar punk started out as.
The other, I don't know, guiding principle we draw on is queer theory in general and queerness in general. We think that queer folks have a way of transcending binaries, building community and galvanizing government action in the face of existential crisis or in the face of government inaction. So we will engage the queer community as much as possible and leverage these superpowers against climate change. And yeah, I think queerness adds a lot to our perspective on what we're creating, but we also want, I think we do a really good job of creating a space that is safe and welcoming to queers, but it's not in a sense that like no straights allowed vibe, you know, it's kind of a place for everybody. And yeah, we want to take the best of that ethos to create a maximally inclusive space.
Yeah, the queer theory is definitely like, it's attached to gender and sexuality on the surface, but at its core, it really is kind of transcending just binary thinking in general. And that's where sort of some of the punk and solar punk comes from too. And then the last one is, I'm sure, a word that you guys have heard many times in what you do, but ecotones, which is an ecological principle that talks about how where two different ecosystems meet each other, those are the most dynamic and diverse areas in nature. The intersection between two distinctly different things blending together and exploring what happens on the fringe is an implicitly interesting philosophy in ecology. And so we try to think about what does that not just look like from an ecological perspective, but also a cultural and philosophical perspective. So what do we do at the intersection of rural and urban, local and global, digital and biological, past and future? We really try to explore how to think about things meeting not as tensions, but as ecotones.
Yeah, so that's all of our theory, which is, you know, something we're very strong at, I think. And so what does that amount to when we actually tried to build a physical space? And so to get into a little bit of, okay, so what actually goes on at our farm, or hopefully will go on at our farm? It's kind of three things that we hope feed into each other and enable each other. And so first and foremost, like we want to draw and engage people to come to our space. And then our actual farm will hopefully be set up in a way that we are demonstrating regenerative strategies and regenerative lifestyles. So that's going to include both like on the farm, everything that we're trying to teach people and show, and it's going to emerge in like trying to do the most diverse number of things. So we want to have, you know, hot composting, we want to have a Johnson Sioux bioreactor, we want to have vermiculture, you know, like try to have one of each of the things to demonstrate. And so it's not going to add up to like the most efficient market farm, because we're more trying to demonstrate different types of techniques you can do. And then use both in-person visitors and what we're doing on site to create digital media and stories that we can spread beyond the farm. And so that kind of, in one slide, we've kind of shown all of the different things that we can do in that vision. So, you know, we want this to be a place you can stay, you can visit. We're really, and we'll talk about where we are and how we're set up to receive visitors. I think we're in a very unique spot geographically to do that. And then all of the different things we want to do on the demonstration side would be, you know, obviously the permaculture food, forest, and garden. We want to have what we call an appropriate tech showroom. It would be almost like not like quite a museum, but like exhibits on different types of technologies that we think demonstrate solar punk ideology or appropriate tech. So those are just a few of the things. Do you want to add to that?
No, I think those are a bunch of the like random goings on. I want to do these next two slides though.
Okay.
Oops. Oh, it's not updated on yours.
But oh, that one.
That's kind of like the random goings on of the farm, but kind of what the meta story that is on top of this is really what like the core of our farm is trying to be. And so Spencer and I, like 4 or 5 years ago, were like talking about, people are constantly asking, like, what can we do to get our lives more aligned with sustainable values and blah, blah, blah. And so we made this little framework where we were like, oh, there's like 5 different spheres. It's like the social sphere, the behavioral sphere, professional, civic, financial. And then the big aha moment was, we were like, that's what you can do, but you're not going to be motivated or capable of doing any of those things if you don't know about the problem and also care about the problem being solved. And so that, like, knowing and caring thing sitting at the center was ultimately what kind of informed the idea of doing a demonstration site. And it's why what we say is that our products, the things that we farm, are education and inspiration, because education and inspiration is what leads to knowing and caring. And that will ultimately empower people to do a lot of different things. So we spent a lot, probably way too much time thinking about like the philosophy of demonstration site. But that's what we're ultimately working towards.
Yeah. And so we can look we're gonna zoom in on the actual space now. So to ground you in where we are in Guerneville, California. If you know where that is, then you know where it is, but it's 90 miles or 90 minutes north of San Francisco.
Where is everybody else, just out of curiosity?
Yeah.
I'm in Marin County in San Anselmo, right by Fairfax,
Oh, nice.
an hour from you.
Yeah, so close.
I'm even closer. I'm in Healdsburg.
Amazing.
Oh, nice.
And I'm in Central Washington, Yakima.
Okay, wonderful.
Very cool.
Yeah, so
Jenny, wait, Jenny.
I'm in northern New Mexico.
Oh, awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't see. Wonderful. Yeah, so we are in Sonoma County, in West Sonoma County, along the Russian River. We're like 20 minutes from the Sonoma coast. We're 30 minutes from Healdsburg and wine country in the Sonoma Valley. And we're just like an hour and a half away from San Francisco. And Guerneville is already a like tourist town. It's has a long history as a queer vacation spot, which is really cool for us. And it has an old growth redwood forest a mile down our road, actually. So we are on the road to a state park, which is really cool. And so we definitely have like a lot of potential for people to stop by and visit. So that's one thing that we've considered in the design of our space.
Yeah, there's also where it's on ancestral Southern Pomo and coastal Miwok land, and there's like an increasingly more well-represented community of Miwok and Pomo people out here too. So there's just a lot of like ways to think about both like the Western experience on the land and the indigenous experience on the land. So there's just so much cool ecological knowledge to pull from up here, which makes a cool tapestry.
And a plethora of mentors here. There are so many farmers and land stewards in Sonoma County and West Sonoma County. It's been amazing to feel very welcomed in this area and have a lot of great resources on hand. So anyway, our specific property.
So we're on a 10-acre parcel that's just a mile away from downtown Guerneville. Really interesting parcel. Honestly, we always joke that we have like 90% of the sun in Guerneville because Guerneville is a very forested, very shady community. But we have approximately 2.5-ish acres of land that we can do sort of farm and soil restoration projects on. And then the rest is mixed redwood forest that needs a lot of forest cleanup and forest management, especially in our very fire-prone area. So yeah, we've got a bunch of different things. We've got flat space, we've got hilly space, we've got open space, we've got wooded space, we've got degraded space, we've got fertile space. So there's a ton of different areas to play and like learn new techniques. So which just make it complicated, but rewarding.
Yeah, and so our first year here, and I'll show you photos of what it looked like in a second. We did a permaculture design course at Occidental Art and Ecology Center. And our first year was really like the protracted and thoughtful observation period where we just looked at what we had and started making the plan for what we wanted here. And so this was the plan that came out of that permaculture design course. And on the bottom half is largely going to be a food forest with as many different types of fruit and nut varieties as grow here. And then we have that small market garden. And then there's lots of other places to plant, but this was kind of the first section that we did a detailed design for. And you can see a little bit of our progress here. So when we moved onto the land, it was, we specifically chose it actually because it was a degraded piece of land that we wanted to go through the process of regeneration, like very biggest little farm. And it was a horse property. There was a foot of lake sand over almost this entire area for the horse arena. And so it was just compacted sand and weeds. And so this photo, honestly, on the right doesn't really do it justice because it was in the late winter when we took this photo. So things were just starting to grow. But you can see some of the little areas where we've planted. So far, we have about 80 fruit and nut trees in the ground.
Yep.
And our market garden in the top left is I don't know. It's like a big garden, really.
It's enough for a demonstration site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for two people.
Yeah. And this all represents really year 3 work. The first 2 years were really about soil regeneration. So we were doing a lot of cover cropping, some amending, letting our chickens kind of wander around out there. But we, I think, started our soil or our what's the level?
Soil organic carbon?
Not soil organic carbon, our nutrient level or our organic matter level at like 2.5%. And we haven't tested it yet, but it's like very clear that it's gotten much better. So we're probably going to test it again next year. But the cover cropping was truly an amazing journey to watch. Seeing the difference between like January year 1 with all the cover crops being up to our knees, and then January year 2 where it was like past our hips in the same time was just really cool to see.
So did you guys remove the sand or you just cover cropped right into it?
We did something called a double dig, which is where we just had somebody come out and they like turned the soil over, but then we also amended it with compost and oyster shell. So it was all pretty soft and turned over when we did the first cover crop. And then since then we've done a very light tilt on top and seeded into like just the top 1 inch of turned over soil for better contact. But for the most part, that was the only time we've disturbed the land was 1 double dig.
Yeah.
I have another quick question about the photo.
Yeah.
Are closest to the road there, are those ponds or swales? What is that feature there? The two.
They are hugel culture in progress. So yeah, sort of swale, sort of hugel culture mounds.
Yeah, because the land in front is such a small grade, it's like very slowly graded. The swales actually really don't do that much. So our first priority was just getting water retention developed in the soil as much as possible. But then when we also showed up, there was a 2 human high stack of wood that had been left over from the previous tenants. So we dragged all of that over and covered it up with soil, mostly as a noise and visual block for later, but also just as an experiment to do a hugel because we'd never done it before.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is this the updated one?
It is. I don't know if we need to go through this, but if we want to.
We kind of covered a lot of different things we've done.
Yeah, this is wrong audience.
Yeah.
But fun page. This is more for ourselves to make us feel like we haven't done nothing.
The vision. So we're currently, so far, Nick and I both work remotely and full-time, and the farm has been our side project and our all-consuming side project. So we're actually in the process of creating a nonprofit and trying to raise money to kind of build out the full vision. But in our heart's desire, we want to create. I mean, some of the things we've done, we've created a beautiful chicken coop that can house like 30 or 40 chickens. Right now, we only have 12, and we've made a lot of progress on the food forest and the market garden. We have yet to get a fully operational compost system. We have a really amazing vermiculture system. It's a flow-through bin that our friend in Oakland gave us. So we mostly focus all of our composting there, but we'd love to also do like hot composting. And then we want to build a farm stand. We want to have an event barn. Right now, we actually have a barn that we've converted into a space where we've hosted weddings, and we've hosted, we just had a senior brunch for Guerneville Pride in our barn. So we've done some really cute things there, but ultimately I think it's not the perfect space for a community gathering that we want to have here. And then ultimately we want to have some more like smaller homes where people can live, and kind of do the like cottage housing model here.
Yeah. The ultimate vision for this really is to have everything to the left and or west of the house, closer to the street, really be like the community with a capital C space. So folks who are walking down the street to go see Armstrong Woods can wander in, can look through the food forest, learn about multi-tiered systems, check out the community garden, pop in and for something at the farm stand, do a little self-guided tour. So that space is ultimately going to be like really for our Guerneville community. And then the space in the back is going to be more for the people who are either staying or living on the space. The ultimate vision is to have between 8 and 10 people here full time to help us sort of like imagine or bring this project into real life. So that'll be more for people who are either staying for the weekend or living back there. This is just making me want to build our community garden beds so bad.
These are some photos of the farm, just to give you an idea of, so in the top left corner is our cover crop coming in. I think that's probably year 2. So you can see barley and vetch, and what you can't see are the common pea, the fava, and the crimson clover. I think that was our full mix.
That's 5. Yep.
Yeah. And then we grew a lot of, we've only done 2 seasons in our annual garden. This year we grew a lot of flowers because we were having our wedding on site. So we're trying to grow all of our flowers. Our other big crops have been tomatoes, but we've kind of done a mix of everything.
Yeah, it's been the garden has been an experiment right now because we've really learned what growing in absolutely awful soil conditions looks like, and then what growing in slightly incremental soil conditions look like. And we've also had like the kind of classic regeneration story arc of like issues that we run into. The first year, everything grew great, or everything grew okay, but it had bad soil nutrients, but there were no pests. The second year when we'd finally brought life back to the space, we had a really, really savage vole problem because finally the dirt was loose and uncompacted enough that voles moved in and there was no pressure on them whatsoever. And then this year, the garden has come back. The garden was doing really, really well. And now we have all these new baby trees. We've had hawks that have moved in and have really kept the voles in check, which has been amazing. But now we have deer that are coming into the garden drawn in by the trees. So it's like every year is a slightly different problem, which has been a really, really fun journey, honestly. And then the apex,
except for the Bermuda grass.
The apex predator, Bermuda grass,
which is destroying our lives.
It's truly the biggest nightmare on earth.
I feel your pain.
Oh God! If you ever figure it out, please call us because I talked to this guy who swung by like a couple of pieces of equipment the other day. Was like, "Oh, you guys got Bermuda grass?" And I was like, "Yeah." Do you know what to do about it? And he's like, "There's one way to get rid of Bermuda grass, and it's move."
Yeah. Pack your bags and move.
Pack your bags and move. I forget. Did you talk about the natural or the native meadow restoration?
I didn't. No.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I didn't, we didn't have a place in the map. So in the front where we showed you is like in the front we have the food forest, the market garden. In the back we have this other clearing that we want to convert into more of a native meadow. So this year we planted a bunch of wildflowers. One thing to look out for when buying California wildflower mix is that sometimes it's just branded as California wildflower mix and it's not all actual native California wildflowers. So we planted the one that has a lot of natives and then a lot of non-natives, mostly cornflower and then the red poppies, which were beautiful for cutting and edible flowers for the cornflower. But anyway, the larger project of the meadow this year, we're planting bunch grasses. And we'll hopefully just like year after year turn that space into keep that as a native meadow.
The larger project was not the flowers. That was a dead space filled with rocks and asphalt and all this stuff. And we had to get in a bulldozer or what's it called?
Excavator.
An excavator. Learn how to use the excavator. We brought in 13,000 pounds of chicken manure. Spread that out over the entire thing, did a really strong sheet mulch over a huge part of it, plus a big layer of compost. So like the amount of, it was not just planting those leaves, that was like 3 months of work.
Yeah.
But that was probably our like most rewarding thing that we've done so far, honestly.
Yeah.
To go from what was essentially like a brown scratch pad into this like incredibly vibrant, beautiful thing all summer was so rewarding.
Yeah, that's the top right corner. We don't have before photos, but it's basically just like dead brown and some, I don't know, invasive mustard and
a lot of Bermuda grass.
And some Bermuda grass, which we sheet mulched over for in certain areas. But yeah, now we have a lot of California poppies there, which is really cool. They're coming back again in the fall, which is cool. I think that's kind of, and I think we're probably near time on our 45 minutes, or I think that was how much we had. So we can definitely go to questions.
Yeah.
I have a question about your water. It's always the perennial California question.
Yeah, I know.
So the goal is redundancy. What we have right now is we are on city water. We have the house came with a very shallow hand dug well. I think it's like 18 feet. That is hooked up to a 2,500 gallon tank. And so that fills in the winter. And we can use that when we need to. But we like can't use it for our own drinking needs, but we could use it for the garden. But the goal is to dig a proper well and also to have rainwater capture as well as gray water. So it's kind of like all of those things are big projects and cost a lot of money, but we want to do all of them. But yeah, right now we're using city water for all of our needs.
Yeah. The nice thing is because of all of the different structures that are built here between the shed, the barn, and the one-story house, which is just great because you get a lot of roof for a one-story house, in tandem with the fact that on average Guerneville gets between 40 and 55 inches of rain per year. Last year we got 79, something insane. But we've run the math and it's like based on the average, we could theoretically capture 500,000 gallons of water per year based on our roof space. Unfortunately, the rainwater capture systems generally cost, they'd say it's about $1 per gallon that you want to capture to put it in. So it could cost we could spend quite a lot of money doing that. So we got to figure out what the optimum level is in order for it to make financial sense for us. But ultimately, we should be able to run most of the stuff that we want to do simply on rainwater without even going into the well.
Yeah, theoretically, for sure.
If we could capture all of it.
I just want an outdoor shower, at least to water our side yard. That's my big ambitious goal right now.
Stacked functions.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
yes. Cool, thank you.
I'm curious about the mushroom hut.
Oh, the mushroom hut.
Oh yeah.
We had a friend living with us, Brandon, who got really into mushrooms when he was mostly foraging. Now he's interested maybe in growing them. But
Started this week.
Oh, he started?
Yeah.
He started growing them this week. But we wanted to have a spot on the shadier side of our north facing, essentially. We're like, well, it needs to be in the shade anyway. What could we do there? And we're like, we could have a mushroom growing operation there. So that's the idea.
We like semi-experimented our first year with doing a bunch of like inoculated logs with shiitake plugs. Unfortunately, we were still baby mushroom people, and we used madrone wood, which is like incredibly dense and doesn't decompose fast. And so we had friends who were like, it'll maybe still fruit. It's just probably going to be like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years.
We
we'll see
accidentally inoculated or got some oyster mushrooms though.
That was just naturally in
I
there.
know. But of course, the one we tried to do didn't work, and then the one we didn't try to do got
massive like dinner plate oysters out of that pile.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. I feel like that's what usually happens with starting with mycology, is like it just goes totally wires crossed. Oh, goes
100%. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Have you been up here for foraging up in the Salt Point area?
No.
Salt Point is kind of like a famed foraging area. They've got just so many different types, and there's like some kind of famous ones that the area has become known for. Candy caps show up here a lot. And so there's always like kind of a fun celebrated time of year in February and March where all the cafes have candy cap lattes and all this kind of stuff. But then there's a bunch of chanterelles and trumpets and cauliflower and coral and all this kind of stuff out there, which is really fun to go hunting for. And you, a mushroom guy, would love a little trip out
really
there.
Fun.
Definitely worth a weekend.
Yeah, I definitely need to get into the foraging side of things. I have to say we're kind of like in the lab more frequently, so it's less about being nature bathing, which is a shame. We should get out there.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. We'll take you.
Thanks.
So you guys, we have a couple of people that are working with animals on their land, and I'm just wondering, in addition to the chickens, and I'm guessing maybe you're going to have a chicken tractor, if there's going to be animal impact, like any goats coming through or sheep grazing periodically.
Probably we're going to stick with fowl, and that's mostly because the amount of space that we actually have and the amount of different things we're trying to do, grazing isn't really a part of our plan. We have talked about bringing in like goats for temporary grazing things, but goats are notorious for taking especially premature trees down to the root, and almost everywhere we're going to be having like different sort of like tree areas. So if we did end up doing some sort of a mammal program, it would probably be very small. It'd probably be in the back area, and it would probably be just goats. But we don't really have room for bigger mammals that we think could kind of live happily on our space. Having 2.5 acres that's bifurcated into all these little like niche zones with like really complex systems going on, honestly would just be like kind of a bummer life for them.
Yeah, I'd be curious though to figure out if there's a possibility to have goats in like in the forest, and just kind of like what impact that would have and how that would work. But yeah, right now we're not equipped or ready to do any more than chickens.
Yeah, I want a pig, but we're not.
Yeah, but it is really like once you have the farm, you like understand why those animals are part of a farm system, and like free management of understory and also manure, and pigs that are trash compactors essentially. So I think it's really cool to know about those systems, and we still have so much to learn.
Totally, yeah. I think when the model that we're doing, which is just like really interesting guild stuff with a bush layer and a ground layer on stuff is going to make so much of that foraging difficult.
Yeah, but maybe in the forest.
Our last speaker was a guy named Reginaldo Haslett Marquin, goes by Reggie, but he is doing these fowl-centered poultry, regenerative poultry, where the birds, they are roosting under elderberry and hazelnut. So it's like the chicken is a crop, and then the elderberry and then hazelnuts are also crops. But the pressure from the hawks and the aerial predators is minimized because of the tree canopy, because the fowl are jungle birds. And his whole thing is like, they're very inexpensive to get up and running fowl systems, and you don't have that capital outlay of like, a beef, like dairy cows or something.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah. And ducks are really interesting too, because it's like, I think we'll probably ramp up ducks hopefully pretty soon. That they eat generally the things that farmers don't want around, while chickens eat everything. But ducks will really stick to insects, snails, slugs, and then like mostly dicots when it comes to plants, or monocots when it comes to plants. So we're really excited about getting that integrated at some point.
Yeah.
But if you guys have read The Third Plate, Dan Barber's book, it's a pretty awesome book, and he details so many really, really interesting integrated regenerative systems that obviously involve mammals, because most of his thing is talking about when we can justify eating meat by raising it appropriately. But yeah, there's so many cool stories in that.
I have a question for both. Well, it's been really neat to just learn about your little property and all that you got going on there so close by. It's definitely an awesome project. But I'm curious kind of how you found yourself in Guerneville doing this work, and kind of what you are doing off the farm to supply your financially, and this, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I know. Normally we start with that whole story. We kind of dove right in. So yeah, we both lived in the city. I, like Kyle mentioned in the beginning, was working in biotech. I in 2018 made the decision I wanted to work in climate, and I just like quit my job and decided that's what I was going to do. So my skills at the time were kind of like science communication, and that's what I've stepped into and what I do now. I work at a nonprofit called One Earth. I work on the science team, and I do a lot of science communication and a lot of like grant development with climate scientists. And so I work a lot. I'm kind of like a climate solutions generalist, sort of, which is what really helps, I think, this space. If we're going to be a demonstration site for climate solutions and sustainability, that is what I can bring to the space. So yeah, that's my side.
And I have been a brand consultant for a long time. I've kind of like slowly inched my career more and more towards sustainability in the last 5 years. I focus primarily on doing strategy and brand consulting for climate companies, kind of mostly in the food and agricultural space, which is great because we're kind of doing a food and agricultural project here in a small capacity. So it's cool to like work with like bigger tech companies who are talking about like the theory of things, and then be able to bring some of the hands-on experience into the fold a little bit. So yeah, the flexibility of our jobs has really been a blessing, and we're so lucky to have like jobs where we can work from home. Unfortunately, right now we are definitely in the space where we joke a lot that we have to have like our off-farm tech jobs in order to be able to run a farm. And I think ultimately what we want to do is figure out new models that we don't have to represent that as what has to happen. But it's the kind of system we're in and the part of our journey that we're on. But ultimately, me specifically, I would like to be way more like fully dedicated to this project as the primary source of income, but it's going to take a few more years before we get there.
And I think financially the agritourism model for us could work. What we don't have are the startup costs covered. So like there's so much upfront costs that would be required to make that happen and to like hire people. And honestly, a lot of permitting issues for like having events here that we're working on. So I think, you know, yeah, we often tell people that like we are not farmers and we don't have the same like financial struggles of being a farmer who's trying to make money on like such
razor thin margins.
Exactly, like razor thin margins of selling crops. Which I think is important because like we're trying to stick to what we're really good at, and essentially we are both storytellers. And so that is what is behind this regeneration project. So yeah, I think we definitely, I think COVID context is important. We made this leap in 2020, and I think we were kind of like assuming that remote work would continue, and it has so far. And another thing we didn't talk about is that this was something, I mean, it's kind of like, we don't want to be another one of those people that like just moved out of the city in COVID. We were thinking about this in 2019, and we had gone up to Oregon and had realized that Oregon was too far, and we didn't want to be like the Californians moving to Oregon, and we wanted to be close to our community in San Francisco. That was like something that became really, really clear. And so it was on our mind, and we were kind of thinking like our 10-year plan when we turned 40. And then COVID happened, and the timing was just like, I don't know, it didn't make sense. I was unemployed and paying San Francisco rent. And so there was like all of these little micro things that were pushing us to make this, and Guerneville and this property called to us.
Yeah. I'd been vacationing here for 10 years, loved the space. It's like, we always talk about, it's the only place that you can find an American flag and a pride flag on the same porch.
Yeah.
It's like a very interesting little microcosm of personalities and cultures, which is great. Yeah, I mean, basically what we're running into mostly is the challenges of turning a space that was not at all designed, zoned, planned to be what we want it to be into what we want it to be. And so those challenges, from permitting to costs to getting people on board with what we want to do, have been kind of the biggest challenge. But progress is happening. This year's felt really good. Felt like the first time that we've actually gotten to welcome people to the space and start to do some of the programming that we want to do, and just get the word out about it. So it's feeling like we're getting out of the trough.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing some of that context.
Yeah.
Just reimagine it a little bit more.
Totally. Yeah. And if you're in Healdsburg, you should swing by sometime. I mean, sounds like all the California people are within driving distance.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm headed down to South America on Tuesday for a long stint there, but to work on honestly a kind of similar project.
Oh, cool.
But I also wanted to just throw in, you guys might, I'd hope you already know about them, but the Farm to Fight Hunger in Healdsburg, Windsor area.
Yeah, we do know them. We haven't met them in person.
No. We're on their mailing list.
Yeah.
Bruce and Anthony are great. With this project I'm working on, Bruce has been
we did meet Bruce. I met Bruce at a thing at Krista's a while back.
Yeah. No, they're great. We talked to them on Instagram.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Well, just another good kind of local connection.
Yeah. Do you know Dusky Estes with Farm to Pantry?
I don't know him personally, but I've heard his name.
Another great contact. She's rad. You would
her
love
name now.
Yeah, but she's like a super passionate, tough broad who's doing awesome work. Every time I talk to her, I'm so impressed.
So awesome. Yeah, it's really neat. Really cool stuff.
Go plants.
Are you on a farm in Healdsburg or a land project, or?
I grew up here in Alexander Valley.
Oh, nice.
I grew up working for farm. When I was 12 or 14 or so, I started working for my neighbor's heirloom tomato farm, and then worked at a porch farm out here.
Oh, we love
We
front,
love front
porch.
porch.
Yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just gotta go back and visit there. But then I studied environmental science at UC Santa Barbara, and going back towards like that agro ecology interface between like native and food production,
Yeah.
community building stuff.
Awesome.
Really cool.
Let somebody else ask some questions if Megan or Jenny has anything.
I do have a question. First, thanks you guys. This was an awesome presentation. I had never heard of solar punk before you guys, so thank you so much for that introduction as well.
Yay.
Very
Get ready to
exciting
go down
to
a
know
rabbit
about.
hole.
Yeah.
I know, it's kind of exciting. I thought I knew all the regenerative rabbit holes, but apparently I do not, which is also good to know.
There's one more.
Yeah. So this is super inspiring, and it's nice to put imagination, I think, back into this whole like regenerative ag sort of movement, I guess. So that's really cool. I'm gonna go dive down that rabbit hole. I was wondering I saw on one of your last slides that you were talking about green tech. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about that. And then before I forget, my second question would be, who are some of the people that you kind of got your inspiration from, or that you still do now in solar punk, or just regen ag in general?
Well, let's start with the first question. The
Yes.
appropriate tech showroom. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, so I come from the field of synthetic biology, so I really thought about this a lot that field really jumped out to me of things that I'm at least already connected to that I could demonstrate. And there's actually several mushroom textile companies in San Francisco. Bolt Threads is a big one. They make Milo. I'm blanking on the other two, MycoWorks, and I think there's like a third one, but those are the two big ones. So like maybe working with them to showcase that. They have their spider silk fibers as well, which I think would be cool. And then there's some other ones. There's like Synbio Concrete. As someone like, okay, so that's Synbio, but then we would also want to do architectural I don't know, designs that different types. So we have like earthenware, or what do you call it? Rammed earth would be a really cool thing to showcase here. We've talked to some people doing like the more high-tech vision of that, which is like bioceramic geodesic domes. And then also something that are like more low-tech, kind of like okay, how can we be most efficient? One of those things was this like passive solar dehydrator I found, where I'm obsessed with it. I like really, well, I think it's just like a really great example of like work smarter, not harder, where it's, like create this structure that creates dehydration for all of your fruits and things without any electricity. And it's because I think we want to avoid being and it's not that we want to avoid it, it's just like not who we are, even though we're like San Francisco tech people, we're not techno optimists vibe. And so we want to make sure that we're showcasing, and again, being that ecotone, we're like, okay, let's show the kind of like traditional knowledge approach versus the higher tech, like green sustainability, green architecture approach. And try to demonstrate all of those.
The appropriate technology really is the like zinger term there, is that we're very for technology, but not for technology's sake. And so we want to demonstrate the right level where it balances out innovation and efficiency, both in material, time, energy. So those are the ones that we're really interested in showing, is like, sure, can we is fine, but should we is the sweet spot. And there's a bunch of really interesting new companies out there that are showing like the right balance of natural inspiration and technological innovation and just smart, efficient thinking. So that's really what we're going to call it, more the appropriate technology showroom, as opposed to like green tech. And then to answer your other question, just about inspiration, the couple groups I guess we would probably really beat their drum is Occidental Arts and Ecology Center up in Occidental is absolutely incredible. They've been around for 25 or 30 years now. They do amazing work. They've trained like a huge portion of the permacultural students in the United States. So they're just the most badass. There's like the Neri Oxman types, which are just like, she's like the original, or she's like one of the cool solar punk thinkers that really kind of talks about natural innovation and art coming together in ways that are both interesting and beautiful. The people we talk about from solar punk perspective also all the time are a lot of artists and storytellers. So like Mobius, when all of the comics were very much like considered the OG solar punk people. Miyazaki, all of his films, especially the ones from the 90s, are incredible examples of solar punk. Who are there? The badasses?
What's the question about inspiration for solar punk? Or you just
that's how I interpreted it, but it was 10 minutes ago, so I forgot.
okay.
No, it was focused around that, but just generally, yeah. I mean, any inspiration is awesome, but this since that's such a new space for me, I was kind of wondering where to start.
Yeah. There's also Schoen Farm up here, which is attached to the Santa Rosa Community College. It's led almost exclusively by educators, and it's mostly for students, but they do some really incredible work out there. And in all honesty, we actually talked to somebody. This is a good and a bad thing, but we talked to somebody at Google a long time ago after I had left like a Google food lab, and we were like, maybe they would be interested in supporting us. And they were like, the good thing about your project is that you are absolutely surrounded by so many wonderful people who know so much and are thinking like this. And that's incredible. The bad thing about that is like, honestly, where this is needed is in like rural Arkansas and places where they're not surrounded by all these things, which is why one of the things we've like talked about a lot for our ultimate vision for the space is to be able to kind of like think about this ultimately as a playbook where we could gather a lot of the learnings from what we've gone through, and everything from land regeneration to permitting to getting along with your neighbors to community engagement to like water, everything, right? And ultimately we would want to be able to put this into like a playbook so we could have solar punk farms that are appropriate to the area that they're in pop up all over the United States and or world, right?
Yeah.
And we'd be so excited to see what would they look like with different brains in different ecosystems and different resources and different challenges and everything like that. So that's really been a motivating factor for us to think about our impact, because the bad news is we're surrounded by so many people who are doing things the right way, which is great for learning.
Well, it sounds like it's a great place to start.
So sometimes it feels like, I'm jealous of all the people in California with all the resources and things happening there. But then I'm like, well, it needs it most here. So I guess I'm in the right place. But it's a
There's
lot
still
lonelier,
even
like,
here.
Washington's got a lot
harder.
of great places too. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should troll our Instagram sometime and just like send out some of the places. I feel like the queer walnut growers are in Washington somewhere. Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah. And even so though, I'm like, being integrated into a community, you realize still how much work there is to do in every community.
Oh, absolutely. Everywhere. We need it all over the place.
Yeah.
So keep doing it.
All of the things.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Any more questions?
I was curious if I could get your guys' contact information. I don't know if
Absolutely.
Yep.
email
It's Nick at Solar Punk Farms and Spencer at Solar Punk Farms.
Okay, great. Because I'm going to the Occidental Arts and Ecology Center on Saturday.
Oh, nice.
In hopes to get into this event with lunch around noon. But if that doesn't work out, or if I don't stay for the full time, maybe I'll swing by.
Is that Eric's release for his book?
Yeah.
Party?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we're ended up out of town this week.
Unfortunately, yeah, we're going to be out of town this weekend. So
Yeah.
But another time when I come back.
Yeah, but tell Eric we say hi.
Yeah.
He was the one that taught us how to use the excavator for this native wildflower meadow
I know,
project.
he's been so nice to us. He's given us a lot of free hours of consultation. Yeah.
Jenny, do you have anything you want to add? I want to make sure you get an opportunity. She has pretty low reception where she is, so she doesn't always have her picture and audio on.
Yeah, okay. I guess, I mean, I'm in like my year 3 on 7 acres, and I'm just I'm really struck by the organization of your guys' vision and the amount of material that you have, spelling that out. I'm finding that really inspiring.
Well,
I appreciate that.
that's like what we do. That's our superpower.
Yeah.
Our actual execution is not nearly as organized.
Yeah.
We're working on. And if you ever like want to like throw paint against the wall, Jenny, he'll kind of like help organize that. I'd be more than happy to chat with you about that, because like that storytelling thing is kind of our main gig. I'd be more than happy to like have a phone call with you about it sometime.
Okay, awesome. I might take you up on that, because I'm like seeing how I'm not really exploring that aspect at all at this point, because it's more just like, I mean, I also have kids, so that's a whole piece of focus, and then just implementing, right, and doing the soil building and the cover cropping and the chickens. But yeah, there is a larger vision at play.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm sure you have it. It's just about like articulating it, which just takes time.
Yeah. That's what I thought was really cool about the PDC that we took at Occidental Art and Ecology Center, is that I think they did a really good job of being like, you can apply what we learned during that PDC was like systems thinking, and they're like, you can apply this to how you're going to get visitors to your farm, like the same mentality that you're going to apply to how you're going to get nutrients back into the soil. You can apply that to like a community level or like a social level. And I thought that was a really interesting thing that I think started this process for us, where it's like, we have to think about what our human resources are and how we can like regeneratively manage those.
Where to give and where to grow.
Yeah. So that's been part of it from the beginning, is that visioning.
Right, and that makes so much sense when you're calling a community as being specific about what your vision is. And yeah, it's filling in a gap for me right now. I'm like, okay, that's an area we could work, because we also want to bring in community as an important piece for us too.
Love that.
What I really love about what you guys are doing, and I've been following you since Kyle met you guys on that fellowship, I think in Italy.
Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle, you didn't tell the group how you met Spencer on a art.
Spencer and I were briefly roommates. This really fantastic artist in residency program in Lago, or called Lago Scuro in Italy, and we got to spend, what was it, Spencer, like 7 days or so? I can't remember now, actually. 10 days. On a pretty established regenerative-ish farm that was also had like a full dairy operation, and got to make art with really wonderful people and share meals and thoughts and great conversation. And it was just it was I wish I could recommend, or I do recommend everybody try to do something like that, but it's not fully accessible to everyone. But it was definitely like foundational from a regenerative perspective of doing cool work on a beautiful space.
But what I love about the way you've implemented it is the storytelling piece and the art and culture piece, because what we try with our speaker series is to show that you don't have to be born into farming and ranching to get into this work, because so many people think like, oh, regen is very cool, but I don't have the skills for that. But they may have the artistic skills, they may have the people skills, they may have the hospitality skills, and just that invitation to bring all those things together. I love how you're just like embedding that into the foundation of Solar Punk Farms, and it's every bit about the community just as much, and the art as much as the growing the tomatoes and the flowers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons we kind of like really try to underscore that we're not experts at this. It's not because we're trying to be self-effacing, it's because we're trying to like lower the like barrier, the feeling of a barrier to people. And we talked about,
I just wanted to show you the mural. Ignore the the text. But
that Alex's?
Yeah, Alex, who organized the retreat that Kyle and I went on in Italy, lived with us for a year, and he painted this mural at our house.
our first big solar punk mural.
Yeah, so this is kind of like part of the storytelling we're doing, is wanting to have artists here that add to the space. So
I'd like to sign up for that.
please
Get your ass up here.
Absolutely. You can
There's
live in
another
the
wall for you there, Kyle.
Yeah.
Mushroom hut, Kyle. Something on the mushroom
We'll build you a little mushroom hut.
Hey, there we go. Or I'll help build that too if you want.
Perfect.
I want to be aware of everybody's time. We're kind of going past the limit here. But I want to say, Spencer and Nick, thank you so much for joining us for this session. I'm really stoked to get your blog out there. This was seriously fantastic to be able to see this work that you guys are doing and to see the story that you've crafted, and I mean, I'm really aligned with the solar punk vision. So it's so cool that you guys are just running with that, because it's awesome and uplifting. So I just want to say thank you so much for everyone here. And then we'll share this with the rest of the crew over recordings, and just big thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Kyle.
guys.
And Spencer just also wrote a solar punk article that kind of like details.
I think he included it in his email.
Oh, awesome.
I did. Yeah.
If you guys are curious about solar punk, he kind of like articulated in a longer format sort of what the tenets of the movement are. So it's a good resource also.
Yeah,
Cool.
go check out the syllabus or the agenda for this week. It's linked in there. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you guys so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Best
Really
of luck.
appreciate it.
Y'all,
Bye.
thank you for what you guys
Bye.
are doing too. Cheers.
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 All right. I'm going to pause the recording.